We don't serve people in wheelchairs here. It makes other guests uncomfortable. Ethan Cole froze. His hand tightened on his 8-year-old daughter Mia's shoulder as the restaurant owner blocked the doorway of La Verità, Seattle's most luxurious Italian restaurant. They'd come to celebrate Mia's straight-A report card, but now he watched a woman in a wheelchair being humiliated in front of a crowd. Ethan could walk away, he had before, but as his daughter whispered, "Dad, that's not fair," he remembered the promise he made to her mother before she died. Always stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. The glass doors of La Verità gleamed under the evening lights, reflecting the city's skyline. Ethan had saved for 3 months to afford this dinner. Mia deserved it, straight A's in every subject, despite everything they'd been through. He straightened his only dress shirt and squeezed his daughter's hand. "Ready, sweetheart?" Mia's eyes sparkled. "Do they really have tiramisu here? The best in Seattle, I've heard." But as they approached the entrance, a scene unfolded that would change their lives forever. A woman in a motorized wheelchair waited near the door, her driver holding it open. She was elegant, perhaps in her late 30s, wearing a navy dress that spoke of quiet wealth. Her auburn hair was styled perfectly, but her face showed something else entirely, the steeled expression of someone preparing for battle. Vincent Moretti, the owner, stepped into the doorway. His Italian suit probably cost more than Ethan's monthly rent. "I'm sorry, but we cannot accommodate you this evening." The woman's jaw tightened. "I have a reservation. Isabella Grant, 7 o'clock. "Yes, well." Vincent glanced at the gathering crowd. "There's been a mistake. Our establishment isn't properly equipped for." He gestured vaguely at her wheelchair. "Your situation." Ethan felt Mia's grip tighten on his hand. "I called ahead," Isabella said, her voice steady despite the tremor Ethan detected underneath. "I specifically asked if the restaurant was accessible. Your hostess assured me it was. She was mistaken." Vincent's smile was cold. "Frankly, wheelchairs ruin the ambiance our other guests expect. La Verità is about elegance, refinement. I'm sure you understand." A murmur rippled through the waiting patrons. Someone pulled out their phone. Ethan saw the red recording light and looked away. This wasn't his business. He had Mia to think about. They could go somewhere else. But then his daughter's voice, small but clear. "Dad, that's not fair." Ethan closed his eyes. Sarah's face flashed in his mind. His wife, gone 3 years now. The woman who'd taught him that silence in the face of injustice was its own kind of cruelty. He'd failed that lesson before. The day his boss had fired a pregnant coworker on false charges, Ethan had said nothing. He'd told himself it wasn't his fight. Sarah had looked at him with disappointment that cut deeper than any argument. "You're right, baby," he whispered to Mia. Then, louder, "Excuse me." Vincent turned, irritation flashing across his face. "Yes?" Ethan stepped forward, acutely aware of his worn shoes and off-brand shirt. "I think there's been a real mistake here. This lady has a reservation. She called ahead. You can't just turn her away because why?" Vincent's eyebrows rose. "Because she's disabled? I'm not discriminating. I'm protecting my business. Other diners don't want their romantic evenings disrupted by what?" Ethan felt heat rising in his chest. "By someone who uses a wheelchair? She's not disrupting anything. You are." Isabella looked up at him, surprise evident in her green eyes. "Sir, I don't know who you are, but this is my restaurant." Vincent's voice dropped dangerously low. "And I'll thank you to mind your own business. It became my business when you decided to humiliate someone in front of my daughter." Ethan felt Mia press against his side. "You're teaching every kid watching that it's okay to exclude people who look different. Is that really the lesson you want to give?" "I'm teaching," Vincent said through gritted teeth, "that business owners have rights. Now, if you'll excuse me." "Actually, no." Ethan stood his ground, though his heart hammered. "The Americans with Disabilities Act says You have to provide reasonable accommodation. What you're doing is illegal. Vincent's face flushed. Get out, both of you. He pointed at Ethan and Isabella. You're not welcome here. Gladly. Ethan extended his hand to Isabella. Ma'am, how about we find somewhere that deserves your business? For a moment, Isabella just stared at his outstretched hand. Then a genuine smile broke across her face, the first Ethan had seen. I'd like that. As they left, Ethan heard applause from some of the waiting patrons. Others looked uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact. Vincent stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching them go with barely concealed fury. The Seattle evening was cool, the sky fading to purple. Ethan walked slowly, letting Isabella set the pace. Her wheelchair was nearly silent, just a soft electric hum. You didn't have to do that, Isabella said after a moment. Yes, I did. Ethan looked down at Mia, who was watching Isabella with open curiosity. My daughter was watching. Isabella stopped her wheelchair and turned to face them. In the streetlight, Ethan could see tears on her cheeks, though her voice remained steady. Still, thank you. Most people just look away. I've looked away before, Ethan admitted. It didn't feel good. I'm Mia, his daughter announced suddenly. I got all A's today. That's why we were going to the fancy restaurant. Isabella's smile widened. All A's? That's incredible, Mia. You must be very smart. Dad helps me with math. It's hard. Math is hard, Isabella agreed. I still use calculators for everything. Ethan cleared his throat. I'm Ethan, by the way. Ethan Cole. And I'm sorry we got you kicked out of your reservation. You got me out of a humiliating situation, Isabella corrected. There's a difference. She looked around the street. There's a little place a few blocks from here, Gianni's Trattoria. Nothing fancy, but the food is authentic. Would you let me buy you both dinner? To celebrate Mia's report card properly? Ethan hesitated. You don't have to. I want to. Isabella's eyes were serious. Please. It would mean a lot to me. Mia tugged his hand. Can we, Dad? Please? Looking at his daughter's hopeful face and the genuine warmth in Isabella's expression, Ethan found himself nodding. Okay. But I'm paying for our meals. We'll see, Isabella said with a mysterious smile. Gianni's Trattoria was everything La Verità wasn't cramped, loud, and filled with the smell of garlic and tomato sauce. Checkered tablecloths, wine bottles as candle holders. Pictures of Italy covering every wall. The owner, an elderly man with a thick accent, greeted Isabella like an old friend. Bella, so good to see you, and you brought friends. Hello, Tony. Can we have the corner table? For you? Always. The table was small, forcing them close together. Mia sat between Ethan and Isabella, swinging her legs happily as she studied the menu. Can you really get anything? She asked her father nervously. Anything you want, sweetheart. Even dessert? Isabella leaned over. Especially dessert. Tony makes cannoli that will change your life. As they ordered carbonara for Ethan, margarita pizza for Mia, and seafood linguine for Isabella, Ethan found himself relaxing. The tension of the confrontation drained away, replaced by something unexpected, comfort. So, Isabella said after their drinks arrived, wine for the adults, lemonade for Mia. Tell me about these A's. Mia needed no encouragement. She launched into detailed descriptions of her science project on volcanoes, her book report on Charlotte's Web, and the long division problems she'd finally mastered. Isabella listened with genuine interest, asking questions that made Mia think. You remind me of myself at that age, Isabella said, curious about everything. Were you good at school? Mia asked. I was okay, better at some things than others. Isabella paused. I went to college and studied business. Learned a lot about how to run companies. What kind of companies? Different kinds. Real estate mostly. Buildings, apartments, places where people work. Ethan noticed she kept it vague, but he didn't press. They were strangers, after all. Or were they? Something about this felt different. The food arrived, and for several minutes they ate in contented silence. Ethan watched Mia show Isabella how to make the perfect pizza bite. Fold it, don't cut it, and saw his daughter's face light up when Isabella followed her instructions exactly. "Can I ask you something?" Mia said suddenly, with the bluntness only children possess. "Why do you use a wheelchair?" "Mia." Ethan felt his face flush. "That's not. It's okay," Isabella interrupted gently. She set down her fork and looked at Mia seriously. "That's a fair question. 5 years ago, I was in a car accident. Very bad. It hurt my spine, and now my legs don't work the way they used to." "Does it hurt?" "Sometimes. But you know what? I learned something important." Isabella's eyes were bright. "I learned to live again. At first, I thought my life was over. I was angry and sad, but then I realized I'm still me. I can still do most things I love. I just do them differently now." Mia considered this. "You're brave." "So are you," Isabella said. "Standing up to that mean man at the restaurant? Telling your dad it wasn't fair? That took courage. Dad was the brave one. You both were." Isabella looked at Ethan, and something passed between them. An understanding, perhaps, or the beginning of one. The conversation drifted to lighter topics. Isabella told them about her travels before the accident. Rome, Barcelona, Tokyo. Ethan shared stories from his delivery routes, the interesting people he met, the packages that made him curious. Mia dominated the discussion of dessert options, eventually convincing them all to share 3 different kinds. When the cannoli arrived, Mia declared them even better than fancy restaurant tiramisu could be. As the evening wound down, Ethan reached for the check, but Isabella was faster. "You already got it?" He frowned. "I said I'd pay for ours. Consider it a thank you," Isabella said. "You gave me something precious tonight, dignity. That's worth more than dinner." "I really should. Next time," Isabella said firmly. If there is a next time, Ethan found himself hoping there would be. Outside, a black car waited at the curb. Not a taxi, but a private sedan. The driver stepped out. Opening the door with practiced efficiency, Ethan noticed Isabella's designer purse, the quality of her coat. This was no ordinary sedan. This was the kind of car that came with a full-time driver. "Wait," Ethan said slowly. "Who are you exactly?" Isabella's smile was enigmatic. "Just someone who appreciates a good man standing up for what's right." "Good night, Ethan." "Good night, Mia. Thank you for a wonderful evening." As the car pulled away, Mia tugged Ethan's sleeve. "Dad, I think she might be rich." "Yeah, baby," Ethan murmured, watching the taillights disappear. "I think she might be." Ethan's phone started buzzing at 6:47 a.m. He ignored it, stumbling to the kitchen to start coffee. Then it rang. Then again. By the 3rd call, he answered. "Ethan Cole?" An unfamiliar voice. "This is Janet Pierce from Seattle News Now. We'd like to interview you about the incident at La Verita last night." "What? How did you?" "The video has over 2 million views. You haven't seen it?" Ethan's stomach dropped. With shaking hands, he opened his phone's browser. The video was everywhere, posted by a dozen different witnesses. "Single dad defends disabled woman" was trending on multiple platforms. The footage was clear. Vincent's cruel words. Ethan's intervention. Isabella's grateful smile. The captions varied. "This is what a real man looks like. Faith in humanity restored. Restaurant owners' discrimination exposed." Ethan's phone rang again. Another news outlet. Then another. He stopped answering. At Mia's school drop-off, other parents recognized him. Some offered congratulations. Others looked at him strangely, as if he'd done something suspicious by being decent. By noon, La Verità had released a statement. Last night's incident has been grossly misrepresented. The video was edited to present a false narrative. Vincent Moretti has always welcomed all guests and complied with all accessibility laws. We are exploring legal options against those spreading defamatory content. By 3 p.m., Ethan received a certified letter. His hands trembled as he read it. Vincent Moretti was suing him for defamation and intentional interference with business operations. The damages: $250,000. Ethan sat at his kitchen table, staring at the letter. He made $38,000 a year. His savings account had $400. He'd been planning to use it for Mia's birthday next month. Dad? Mia appeared in the doorway, home from her after-school program. Why do you look sad? Just tired, sweetheart. But as she hugged him, Ethan felt the weight of the lawsuit pressing down. He'd done the right thing, so why did it feel like he was being punished? The call came 2 days later, just as Ethan was considering selling his car to afford a lawyer's consultation. Ethan? It's Isabella. Don't panic about the lawsuit. Let me help. They met at Kerry Park, overlooking the Seattle skyline. Isabella was already there when he arrived, her wheelchair positioned to face the view. Mia ran ahead to look at the city, giving them space. I don't understand what's happening, Ethan admitted, sitting on the bench beside her. I told the truth. Everyone saw what he did. Truth doesn't always matter in court, Isabella said quietly. But money does. And connections. And I have both. She took a breath. Ethan, I need to tell you something. I haven't been entirely honest about who I am. His stomach tightened. Okay, my name is Isabella Grant. I'm the CEO of Grant Holdings. We own about 40 commercial properties in Seattle, including She paused, the building where La Verità operates. Ethan stared at her. You're his landlord? Technically, yes, though he deals primarily with our property management team. Isabella's voice was steady, but her hands twisted in her lap. I didn't plan what happened that night. I genuinely wanted a nice dinner. I was tired of eating at home, tired of people knowing who I am and treating me differently. Why didn't you tell me? Because you didn't care. Isabella looked at him, her eyes bright. You stood up for me because it was right, not because of who I am or what I could do for you. Do you know how rare that is? I'm a CEO in a wheelchair. People either pity me or want something from me. You just saw a person being treated unfairly. Ethan processed this. You're a millionaire. Multi-millionaire, technically. A sad smile. My grandfather built the company. I inherited it. After my accident, he wanted to make sure I'd be taken care of. Ironic, isn't it? The accident that paralyzed me also made me one of the wealthiest women in the city. I feel like an idiot, Ethan said. Having you pay for dinner. Thinking I was helping you, you were helping me. Isabella interrupted fiercely. You have no idea what that night meant. I've been refused service before, Ethan. Restaurants, shops, even medical offices. And every time, people look away. They're uncomfortable. They don't want to get involved. But you got involved. You and Mia. She glanced at his daughter, who was making faces in the reflection of a car window. That little girl asked me why I use a wheelchair with more compassion than most adults show. You raised her to be kind. Her mother did that, Ethan said quietly. Sarah. She died 3 years ago. Cancer. She taught Mia, taught both of us, that kindness matters more than comfort. She sounds like she was wonderful. She was. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the city. Finally, Ethan spoke. What happens now? With the lawsuit? Now, Isabella said, a steel edge entering her voice, we fight back. I've already contacted Patricia Nguyen. She's the best civil rights attorney in the state. She's taking your case pro bono, as a favor to me. And we're going to do more than just defend you. We're going to expose Vincent for what he is, which is a serial discriminator with a history of settlements and non-disclosure agreements. Isabella's jaw set. My legal team did some digging. Vincent has been sued 6 times in the past 8 years for disability discrimination. Each time, he settled quietly, made the complainants sign NDAs, and kept operating exactly the same way. He thinks money and silence will protect him forever. Can we really beat him? We can do more than beat him, Isabella said. We can make sure he never does this to anyone else. Ethan looked at her, this woman who'd gone from a stranger he defended to someone who might change his life. Why are you doing this? You could just evict him, right? As his landlord? I could. But that wouldn't change anything. He'd just open another restaurant somewhere else. This way, Isabella's eyes gleamed with determination. We set a precedent. We show every business owner in this city that discrimination has real consequences, and we help all the other people he's hurt come forward. I'm scared, Ethan admitted. I'm a delivery driver. He's a successful businessman. Who's going to believe me? Everyone who saw that video, Isabella said. Everyone who's ever been made to feel less than human because of how their body works. Everyone who's tired of watching injustice happen and doing nothing. She reached out and took his hand. You're not alone in this, Ethan. You never were. Patricia Nguyen's office was everything Ethan expected from a top attorney, sleek, modern, expensive. The lawyer herself was in her 40s, with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. Let me be clear, Patricia said, spreading documents across her conference table. Vincent's lawsuit against you is baseless. Defamation requires false statements. Everything you said was true and provable. The video alone destroys his case. Then why sue at all? Ethan asked. Intimidation. He assumes you can't afford to fight back. So you'll settle or let him win by default. Patricia's smile was predatory. He assumed wrong. Over the next hour, she laid out their strategy. First, they'd file a motion to dismiss Vincent's lawsuit. Simultaneously, they'd countersue for malicious prosecution and file formal complaints with the city's Human Rights Commission and the state attorney general. But here's the important part, Patricia said, looking at Isabella. We need the other victims. The ones who signed NDAs. Can they break those agreements? Ethan asked. NDAs can't cover illegal activity. Patricia explained. If Vincent committed civil rights violations, those settlements are void. We need to find these people and convince them to come forward. I have names, Isabella said quietly. She slid a folder across the table. My investigators found 6 previous cases. Marcus Thompson, a veteran with a prosthetic leg. Linda Chen, who uses a service dog. Robert Bailey, who's deaf and needs accommodation. And 3 others. Patricia flipped through the files, nodding. This is good. This is very good. With multiple complainants showing a pattern of discrimination, we can bury him. What about me? Ethan asked. What do I need to do? Tell the truth, Patricia said simply. That's your superpower here, Mr. Cole. You're an ordinary person who did the right thing. Juries love that. Vincent's lawyers will try to paint you as opportunistic, as targeting him because Isabella is wealthy. Don't let them shake you. Ethan felt his resolve hardening. I won't. Over the following weeks, Patricia's team worked methodically. They contacted each of Vincent's previous victims, explained the situation, and asked them to join the case. One by one, they agreed. Marcus Thompson was first. The 52-year-old veteran had lost his right leg in Afghanistan. 2 years ago, Vincent had refused to seat him at La Verita, claiming his prosthetic leg was unsettling to other diners. Marcus had been mortified, accepting a small settlement just to make the pain stop. I thought I was the only one, Marcus told Ethan when they met. I thought maybe I was being too sensitive. You weren't, Ethan assured him. None of this is okay. Linda Chen came next. Then Robert Bailey. Each had a similar story: discrimination, humiliation, a quick settlement to avoid the trauma of a trial. Each had signed away their right to speak about it. Until now, Patricia said at their strategy meeting. Now they're speaking. And the whole city is going to listen. But Vincent wasn't finished. 2 weeks before their court hearing, he appeared on the local evening news. "This is a witch hunt," he told the camera, his face a mask of wounded dignity. "I've built my reputation over 20 years. And now these people are trying to destroy me with lies and manipulated footage. The truth is simple. Mr. Cole and Miss Grant are in a relationship. This entire situation was manufactured to extort money from me and gain attention." Ethan watched the interview at home, his fists clenched. Mia sat beside him, unusually quiet. "Dad, is that man saying you're lying?" "Yes, baby, but you're not." "I know. Then why would he say that? How could he explain to an 8-year-old that sometimes people lied when the truth threatened them? That power and money made some people think they were above consequences? Some people," Ethan said carefully, "would rather blame others than admit they were wrong." His phone buzzed. "Isabella, don't respond," her text read. "Patricia says silence is stronger than anger right now. Let the facts speak." But Ethan's silence didn't stop the rumors. Online, strangers debated whether he was a hero or a con artist. Some pointed out that he was a single father struggling financially. Clearly, he was after Isabella's money. Others defended him. But the noise was deafening. Then came the worst part: photographers outside Mia's school. "Mr. Cole, is it true you're dating Isabella Grant? Did you plan the restaurant incident? What do you say to people who think you're exploiting a disabled woman?" Ethan shielded Mia, pushing through the crowd to his car. His daughter was crying by the time they got home. "I hate this," she sobbed. "I hate that people are being mean about you." Ethan held her, feeling helpless. He'd thought standing up for what was right would be simple. He hadn't counted on it becoming a media circus. That night, Isabella called. "How's Mia?" "Scared, confused." I think Ethan's voice cracked. "I think maybe we should stop. Drop the case. This is too much for her." "No." Isabella's voice was firm. "I'm coming over. We need to talk." Isabella arrived an hour later. Ethan had put Mia to bed, though he doubted she was sleeping. He opened the door to find Isabella looking determined, her driver waiting by the car. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "I never wanted this to hurt Mia." "It's not your fault." Ethan stepped aside to let her in. His apartment was small, cluttered with toys and laundry. Isabella navigated carefully, her wheelchair fitting through the doorways with inches to spare. "Nice place," she said, and sounded like she meant it. "It's not much, but it's ours." Ethan gestured to the couch. "Do you want to? I mean, is the couch okay? Or, couch is fine." Isabella transferred smoothly, her upper body strength evident. "Ethan, sit. Please." He sat beside her, suddenly aware of how close they were, of how much his life had changed since that night outside La Verita. "Vincent is escalating," Isabella said, "because he's losing. Every victim who comes forward weakens his position. The city's Human Rights Commission has opened a formal investigation. His other business partners are getting nervous. He's desperate, so he's attacking the one thing he thinks will work your character." "It's working," Ethan said bitterly. "Half the city thinks I'm a gold digger. The other half thinks you're a hero." Isabella reached out, her hand finding his. "Ethan, I need to tell you something. And I need you to listen until I'm done." He nodded. "When I had my accident," she began, "I lost more than my ability to walk. I lost my confidence, my sense of self. I thought no one would ever see me as anything but my disability. And for a long time, I was right. Men either pitied me or fetishized my wheelchair. Women were kind, but distant, like disability might be contagious. I built walls. I threw myself into work. I told myself I didn't need anyone. She paused, her thumb rubbing small circles on his hand. Then you happened. You didn't pity me or ignore me. You just saw injustice and acted. And when we had dinner, you talked to me like a person, not a charity case, not a tragic figure. Just Isabella. Her eyes met his. You made me remember what it feels like to be seen. Isabella, let me finish. She smiled shakily. Vincent says we're in a relationship to discredit our case. But the truth is, I wish we were. I've been trying not to care about you, Ethan, trying to keep this professional. But I can't. You're kind and brave, and you make Mia laugh, and you care about things beyond yourself. And she took a breath. I'm falling for you, and I needed you to know that, even if it complicates everything. Ethan stared at her. In the dim light of his living room, Isabella looked vulnerable in a way he'd never seen. The powerful CEO stripped away, leaving just a woman taking an enormous risk. I'm a delivery driver, he said quietly. I live paycheck to paycheck. I have a daughter and a dead wife I still love, and a life that's so different from yours. Why would you? Because you're real, Isabella interrupted. Because when you look at me, you see me. Because you stood up for a stranger when no one else would. Because her voice broke. Because I've been so lonely, Ethan. And for the first time in 5 years, I don't feel alone. He kissed her. It wasn't planned, wasn't smooth. Their noses bumped. She made a surprised sound. But then her hand cupped his face, and it was perfect, soft and tentative, and full of possibility. When they broke apart, Isabella was smiling. That was, yeah, Ethan agreed. What do we do now? We fight, Ethan said. Together. For Mia. For all those people Vincent hurt, for ourselves. And after he took her hand again, we figure out what this is. If you want to, I want to, Isabella said. Very much. The next morning, Patricia called with news. The investigative journalist from the Seattle Times found something. Vincent violated a court order 5 years ago, requiring him to install accessible ramps in bathrooms. He paid the fine but never did the work. We have photos, dated inspections, everything. Can we use that? Ethan asked. Oh, we're going to use it. This shows willful, ongoing discrimination. The city's building department is getting involved. If this holds up, and it will, Vincent could lose his business license entirely. The momentum shifted. News outlets that had been skeptical now ran stories about Vincent's pattern of violations. Former employees came forward with stories of him mocking disabled customers behind their backs, instructing staff to discourage people who used mobility aids. Within a week, Vincent's investors pulled their funding. 3 key employees quit publicly, citing ethical concerns. Reservations plummeted. La Verita was dying, and everyone could see it. The deposition was grueling. Vincent's lawyers spent 6 hours trying to poke holes in Ethan's story, to find some inconsistency, some proof of ulterior motive. When did your relationship with Miss Grant begin? The lawyer asked for the 3rd time. After the incident, Ethan repeated. We had dinner as friends. Things developed from there. How convenient. A poor single father befriends a wealthy disabled woman. And suddenly, he's suing my client for $250,000. I didn't sue anyone, Ethan said evenly, though his jaw ached from clenching. Your client sued me. I'm just defending myself. By dating his landlord? By telling the truth. Isabella's deposition was scheduled for the afternoon. As they waited in the hall, she reached for Ethan's hand. You did great, she whispered. I wanted to punch him. I know. That's why Patricia told you to keep your hands flat on the table. She smiled. My turn now. Isabella's deposition was more pointed. The lawyers focused on her disability, her wealth, her motivation. Miss Grant, isn't it true that you've advocated for stricter accessibility laws? Yes. So you have an agenda? If you consider wanting equal access an agenda, then yes. And you saw an opportunity to advance that agenda by attacking my client? I saw an opportunity, Isabella said coldly, to hold someone accountable for breaking the law. You're romantically involved with Mr. Cole? Isabella met the lawyer's eyes. Yes. And when did that relationship begin? After your client's discriminatory behavior brought us together. How can you expect anyone to believe you're unbiased? I don't need to be unbiased, Isabella said. I need to be right. And I am. Your client has violated the rights of disabled people repeatedly, hidden behind settlements and NDAs, and shown no remorse. He's not being persecuted. He's facing consequences. The lawyer shuffled his papers, clearly frustrated. No further questions. Outside the deposition, Ethan found Isabella in the parking garage, her hands shaking on her wheelchair controls. Hey, he said softly. You okay? I hate this, she admitted. I hate having my disability used as a weapon. Like being paralyzed makes me less credible, less trustworthy. You were incredible in there. I wanted to cry, but you didn't. Ethan knelt beside her wheelchair. Isabella, you're the strongest person I know. And I'm so grateful. His voice caught. I'm so grateful that night at the restaurant happened. Not because of the lawsuit or any of this mess, but because I met you. She kissed him then, in the fluorescent lighting of a parking garage, with the sound of traffic echoing around them. It wasn't romantic or cinematic, but it was real, and that mattered more. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Vincent's former sous chef, a woman named Rachel Kim, who'd worked at La Verita for 3 years. I kept a log, Rachel told Patricia, handing over a worn notebook. Every time he refused service to someone with a disability, every time he made a cruel joke, every time he told us to handle someone discreetly, I documented it all. The notebook was devastating. Dates, times, names where Rachel knew them. Detailed descriptions of Vincent's instructions to staff. Seat them in the back corner where no one can see. Tell them we're fully booked. Make them feel uncomfortable so they leave. Why did you stay? Ethan asked when they met. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. I needed the job. I have student loans, rent. I'm not proud of it, but I followed his orders. I'm sorry. You're here now, Isabella said gently. That's what matters. With Rachel's testimony and notebook, the case became airtight. The city's investigation expanded. State regulators got involved. And then came the final blow. The Seattle Times published a comprehensive expose. The article was damning. It detailed every victim, every settlement, every violation. It included quotes from former employees, photos of the inaccessible facilities, and a timeline showing Vincent's deliberate pattern of discrimination spanning nearly a decade. Public opinion turned decisively. Protests formed outside La Verita. Disability rights organizations held press conferences. The mayor issued a statement condemning the restaurant's practices. Vincent's lawyer called Patricia. My client wishes to settle. No, Isabella said immediately when Patricia relayed the message. No settlements, no NDAs. This goes to trial, or he pleads guilty publicly. He's offering full restitution to all victims, plus damages, the lawyer explained. That's a good outcome. It's not enough, Isabella insisted. If we settle, nothing changes. He learns that money solves everything. I want admission of wrongdoing. I want a public apology to every person he hurt. I want court-mandated training and monitoring. I want consequences that actually matter. Patricia smiled. I'll tell them. 2 days later, Vincent Moretti stood before the press, his lawyer beside him, and read a prepared statement. His voice was flat, his face stony, but the words were clear. I acknowledge that La Verita engaged in discriminatory practices against people with disabilities. These practices violated the Americans with Disabilities Act and basic human decency. I personally turned away guests, including Isabella Grant, because of my own prejudices and misguided business concerns. I am deeply sorry to every person I hurt, and I accept full responsibility for my actions. He detailed the restitution, payments to all previous victims, full accessibility renovations to the restaurant at his personal expense, mandatory training for all staff, and ongoing monitoring by the city's Human Rights Commission for 5 years. Additionally, Vincent continued, his jaw tight, I am personally apologizing to Ethan Cole for the baseless lawsuit I filed against him. His actions that night were courageous, not defamatory. I was wrong. The settlement wasn't just financial. Vincent agreed to serve 100 hours of community service with disability organizations. La Verita would host monthly free dinners for people with disabilities and their families. And perhaps most importantly, the full record of his violations would remain public. No NDAs, no sealed documents. Ethan watched the press conference from Patricia's office, Isabella beside him. When it ended, he felt oddly empty. We won, Isabella said. Why don't you look happy? I am happy. Ethan struggled to articulate it. I keep thinking about all the people who went through this before, who took the settlement and stayed silent because they didn't have someone like you to help them. We won, but it took so much. Too much. That's why what you did mattered, Patricia said quietly. You didn't know Isabella was wealthy. You didn't know this would turn into a movement. You just saw something wrong and stood up. That's the seed. Everything else grew from that. 6 months later, Ethan stood in Gianni's Trattoria, the little restaurant where it had all begun. Tony had closed it for a private party, a very special one. You ready? Marcus Thompson asked, straightening Ethan's tie. The veteran had become a friend over the months of legal proceedings and shared trauma. Nervous, Ethan admitted. Good nervous or bad nervous? Good. Definitely good. The restaurant had been transformed. White flowers everywhere, candles on every table, soft music playing. Mia was the center of attention in her flower girl dress, showing anyone who'd listen how she could spin without getting dizzy. And at the altar, Tony's nephew was an ordained minister. It turned out stood Isabella. She'd transferred from her wheelchair to a regular chair for the ceremony, her braces visible beneath her elegant cream dress. She'd been adamant about that. I want people to see, she'd told Ethan when they discussed it. This is who I am. Our marriage isn't about pretending the disability doesn't exist. It's about building a life that includes it. The ceremony was small. Mia, beaming with importance, scattered petals. Marcus and Linda Chen stood as witnesses. Rachel Kim was there, along with Robert Bailey and the other victims turned advocates. Patricia came with her wife. Tony cried openly, dabbing his eyes with his apron. When Isabella said her vows, her voice was steady. Ethan, you saw me when I'd forgotten how to be seen. You stood up when everyone else looked away. You showed Mia and me that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being afraid and acting anyway. I promise to be your partner, your equal, your home. In wheelchairs and out of them, in good days and hard ones, I promise to keep seeing you too. Ethan's vows were simpler. I promise to never look away. I promise to fight for what's right, especially when it's hard. I promise to love you, all of you, every day. And I promise to keep making Mia eat vegetables, even though you keep conspiring to give her dessert first. Laughter rippled through the small crowd. The reception was joyful chaos. Tony served enough food for twice their number. Mia danced with everyone, including Isabella, who'd transferred back to her wheelchair and let the 8-year-old sit on her lap for a spin around the floor. During a quiet moment, Ethan found Isabella by the window, looking out at the Seattle streets. Happy? He asked, slipping an arm around her shoulders. Incredibly, she leaned into him. You know what the best part is? This almost didn't happen. If Vincent hadn't been a bigot, if that restaurant had just seated me, We never would have met, Ethan finished. I'm not saying I'm grateful for discrimination, Isabella clarified quickly. But I'm grateful it led me to you. To Mia. To this family we're building. About that, Ethan pulled out his phone, showing her a message. Grant Holdings is offering me a position, logistics management. It's a huge step up from delivery driving, and they're promising it has nothing to do with being married to the CEO. It doesn't, Isabella assured him. Patricia recommended you. She's on our board. Your organizational skills and work ethic impressed her during the case. But she looked at him seriously. I need you to know, take it or don't. I'll love you the same whether you're a delivery driver or a logistics manager. Your job doesn't define your worth to me. I know. Ethan kissed her temple. I'm going to take it. Not because of who you are, but because I want to build something. For me, for Mia, for us. I want to show our daughter that standing up for what's right doesn't mean sacrificing your dreams. Sometimes it leads you to them. Across the room, Mia was teaching Linda Chen's service dog a trick involving a dinner roll. The dog was far more interested in eating the roll than learning the trick. But everyone was laughing. She's happy, Isabella observed. Was she okay with? She gestured between them. All of this. Are you kidding? She told me I'd be an idiot not to marry you. Apparently, you're the coolest person she knows. Ethan grinned. She also asked if this means she gets 2 birthday parties now. Obviously it does. A month later, La Verita reopened. The renovations were extensive. Ramped entrances, accessible bathrooms, lowered sections of the bar and host stand, braille menus, trained staff. Vincent had sold his ownership stake and stepped back from daily operations. The new management was committed to radical inclusion. The grand reopening was a PR event, with local politicians and disability advocates in attendance. Isabella and Ethan were invited, but declined. We're not interested in being props, Isabella said when the invitation arrived. That restaurant was never about us. It was about everyone who's ever been told they don't belong somewhere because of how their body works. Instead, they spent that evening at home, their home now, a renovated house with wide doorways and an accessible kitchen. Mia was doing homework at the table. Isabella was reviewing contracts. Ethan was attempting to cook dinner without burning it. Dad, you're letting the pasta boil over, Mia called. I see it. Do you need help? Isabella asked, wheeling over. No, I've got okay. Yes, I need help. They worked together, Isabella directing while Ethan followed instructions. Mia supervised by offering commentary on everything they were doing wrong. By the time they sat down to eat, the pasta was only slightly overcooked, and the sauce was surprisingly good. To family, Ethan said, raising his glass of water. To standing up, Isabella added. To cannoli, Mia declared, already eyeing dessert. They clinked glasses, the soft sound echoing in their new home. That night, after Mia was asleep, Ethan and Isabella sat on their porch. The Seattle evening was cool and clear. I've been thinking, Isabella said, about what we do next. Next, we started something, Ethan. That night at La Verita, we showed people that disability discrimination won't be tolerated. But there are thousands of restaurants, shops, offices, places that still aren't accessible. People who still get turned away every day. What are you proposing? A foundation. Isabella's eyes gleamed with purpose. Funded by Grant Holdings, but independent. We'll help people fight discrimination cases, fund accessibility improvements, train businesses. We'll take what we learned and scale it. Ethan felt his chest tighten with emotion. That's incredible. But why me? You're the CEO. You don't need my input. Because you're the one who stood up, Isabella said simply. I was the victim that night. You were the advocate. We need both perspectives. We need to show people that allies matter, that standing up for others isn't just the right thing to do, it's the necessary thing. Will you help me? Ethan thought about that night outside La Verita. The woman in the wheelchair with tears on her cheeks. His daughter's small voice. That's not fair. The decision to step forward when everything told him to look away. He thought about all the Isabellas who'd been turned away before, who'd accepted it because they had no choice. All the Ethan who'd witnessed injustice and stayed silent. Yes, he said. Let's do it. 5 years after that night, the Grant Cole Foundation had helped win over 200 accessibility cases, trained 15,000 business owners, and funded accessibility improvements at more than 500 locations. La Verita, now under new ownership and renamed INSIEM, meaning together, had become a model for inclusive dining, regularly hosting events for disability communities. Vincent Moretti had quietly retired, moving to a different city. He never spoke publicly about the case again, but several people reported seeing him volunteer at a disability resource center. Whether this was genuine change or reputation management, no one could say for certain. Marcus Thompson now worked for the foundation, using his military logistics experience to coordinate accessibility audits. Linda Chen sat on their advisory board. Rachel Kim became their head of business training, using her restaurant experience to help other establishments avoid Vincent's mistakes. And at the center of it all were Ethan, Isabella, and Mia, now 13, brilliant and determined to change the world herself. On the 5th anniversary of that fateful night, they returned to Gianni's Trattoria for dinner. Tony, older now but still energetic, greeted them with his usual enthusiasm. Bella, Ethan, Mia, so tall. Come, your table is ready. As they settled in, Mia reviewing the menu with the serious concentration of someone choosing something important, Ethan reached across the table for Isabella's hand. Do you ever think about how different things might have been? He asked quietly. If I'd looked away that night? I used to, Isabella admitted. But not anymore. We didn't just choose each other that night. We chose to believe that one person speaking up could matter. And it did. Still does, Ethan added. Mia looked up from her menu. Are we having the philosophical conversation again? Because I'm hungry. They laughed, the sound warm and genuine. Tony brought wine, lemonade, bread. The restaurant filled with the chatter of other diners, the clink of silverware, the everyday music of people sharing meals. And in that moment, surrounded by the life they'd built from one act of courage, Ethan understood something fundamental. Justice wasn't a destination. It was a practice, a daily choice to see others, to stand up, to refuse to look away. That night, we didn't just stand up for her, Ethan thought, looking at his wife and daughter. We stood up for who we wanted to be. And that made all the difference.